Hey, Joel and Jed here for another episode of In the Cheap Seats. Jed, Super Bowl Sunday, probably one of my favorite Super Bowls in a long time. What were your thoughts on the game?
It was a great Super Bowl. I was I was kind of shocked that the Saints were able to rally the way they did. I think that onside kick at the beginning of the second half was something that nobody saw coming. I think on a prop bet sheet you could have done pretty well with that. I think they answered their critics, and the whole game, you just got the feeling that it was their time. And then at the end, when you see Drew Brees with his son, that's a story in itself. So I was pleased, and it was a great game. That's all anybody could ask for.
I think with this one, as a Dallas fan for so many years, it's well over a decade now that I haven't had a team in the Super Bowl to cheer for, and so I don't always pay as much as attention to the game. This year, though, I think unless you were a Colts fan, you were a Saints fan.
I think definitely, and I'm a Browns fan, so I've never had anything to cheer for come Super Bowl time. But I think the nation embraced the Colts, or the Saints, unless you were, like you said, you were a Colts fan or had a heavy betting interest the other way. And that's a good story. It's like, I think everybody was kind of embracing the Giants a couple of years ago when they beat the Patriots. Here's this great. Here's the team that's supposed to be the best there is, and can anybody beat them? And the Saints showed that it was possible.
A lot of fuss has been made about Peyton Manning not shaking hands when he walked off the field. Something that LeBron James did also. Do you have a problem with these guys not shaking hands after a game?
Not in a professional championship game, no. I think in hockey it's stupid that they have to. They have to line up and do it. Nobody else makes you. Baseball players don't shake hands. As you mentioned, LeBron didn't shake hands. You lose a championship game as a professional, that's pretty tough to swallow. I don't have any problem with it.
I agree. I mean, I know these guys get paid absurd amounts of money, but at the same time, this is what they work the whole year for. Training camp, 2-a-days, everything. It leads up to that one game, and if you don't win it, the season means nothing, basically.
Right. It's easier to shake hands after wrapping up a 3-13 season than it is losing the Super Bowl, I would imagine.
That's right. Another big in football newsworthy note last week was a 13-year-old verbally committing to the University of Southern California. Nobody else but Lane Kiffin could probably pull this off, but we've had so many discussions about these kids and their signings and everything like that. What do you do when a 7th grader is already talking about college football?
I think you make the school honor it. If they're willing to entertain something like that, I think you make them honor it. That way, that's one way that you can get them to not to do that anymore. If the kid's going to come out and say, I'm going to Southern Cal, and Southern Cal's okay with it, make them say, what if he never takes a varsity snap? Well, I guess you're burning your scholarship on a manager then, because he's committed to you and you're committed to him.
I worry because I think it's leading us down a road in sports that we just don't want to go down. And I mean, these kids are hitting puberty. They're thinking about girls. I don't think we need to be pushing college football at them yet. And in this week's column in the Greer Citizen, I thought about Todd Marinovich.
Mm-hmm.
He's grown up groomed to be a superstar football player, and he crashes and burns. And I just don't know if we're setting this kid up for the same thing.
Yeah, the Marinovich thing where you've been on the cover of Sports Illustrated and you've never had a Coke or a Big Mac. It's unbelievable. And I'm with you. Let's wait a couple of years until maybe they take a varsity snap and see how they handle real football. And then if they want to commit, that's fine.
You and I were both at Marcus Lattimore signing. One of my favorite athletes of all time. Just a great kid, and I wish him nothing but the best. But at the same time, it was insane, the atmosphere there. Personally, I enjoy, last week I went out and interviewed Kenneth Ramey, Greer offensive lineman that's going to play college football. And it was him and his parents and his coach. And I loved it because at the end of the day, that's what it needs to be about. And, how do you feel about these, just events that they've almost become as far as a kid saying, well, I'm going to go play college football?
Well, I had kind of the same experience you did last week, interviewed Raheem Hughes from Chestnut. And his main reason for he's going to North Greenville to play defensive back. And his main reason, he said, my sister plays basketball, and I'm going to show her that through hard work and dedication, you can do this and you'll get a degree. That's who needs the event. Let's have an event for that kid. I don't think that there's much of a place for it, but as fans, as media, we're the reason for it. These daily updates on where a kid's going and what a kid's thinking about and who his list of 15 is and things like that. That's the reason why is grown people taking an absurd interest in where a kid's going to school.
That's exactly it. I almost feel like it's gotten to the point where, other than the athlete themselves, we're the biggest guest at these signings.
Right.
The media, we're making it all about us instead of about them, and their parents who have sacrificed for their whole lives, the whole lives of the children, to give them everything to put them in this position.
Right, those people had to wait. The people that had Marcus Lattimore's best interests at heart and were there to hug his neck and say you did good had to wait 15 minutes till we were done with him before they could do that. And we need to wait. We need to be the one that has to stand behind parents and grandparents and well-wishers and say, Marcus, can we get a minute? That's what needs to happen. It doesn't need to be focused on how much attention this kid can get. He needs to be getting attention from his family, from the people closest to him.
Last night, watched Duke and North Carolina basketball game. Good game for a while. Duke pulls that out at the end. I'm sitting there watching the game, though, and very few players on either team that I recognized. And I'm getting this feel about college basketball right now that you got the guys that are staying 4 years, or you got the guys that are going to go in and say, I'm one and done. And I don't really feel like it's letting you develop a closeness with a basketball team when you know you're going to have a player for one season and that's it. Do you feel like the college basketball game is taking a step backwards at all?
I do, and I think North Carolina is a perfect example. You look at what they had last year. Now, I realize that Hansbrough will be gone. I think Danny Green will be gone anyway. But they'd have Lawson back. They'd have several of those other, Ellington would be back. Several of those other big guns would be back this year to lead these freshman All-Americans along. I think one thing you're finding out is these freshmen aren't as good as they thought they were. Just because you put a North Carolina uniform on doesn't mean everybody's going to get out of your way. Another thing is without that senior leadership, without that guy that's been there 4 years, you look back at the ACC, growing up, that's the conference that I was rooting for the whole time I grew up. You look back at Mark Price and John Sally and more recently Shane Battier, Leitner, Ferry, players like that, players that played 4 years, and you barely hear from them. Now, Price had a great career. Sally won a couple of rings, but for the large part, those guys were role players when they got to the NBA, but they were the best college seniors around. That's why, because they were in those wars for 4 years, and they stayed and they learned, and they had seniors ahead of them shepherding them along. And I think that's a big part of what's missing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look, and I can remember growing up seeing Kevin Garnett in a Malden jersey playing, against Burns. You looked at him and you knew this guy's at a different level. LeBron, you saw him, McDonald's games when he was in high school, at different levels. Same with Kobe. Guys like that, let them go.
Right.
They don't want to be in college. Just let them go to the pro. Let the guys that want to play college basketball, that want to live that experience, let them play. Give them the scholarships. Because I think at the end of the day, that's one thing that David Stern needs to look at is like, okay, if I'm making this guy stay a year in college, somebody's losing a scholarship.
Right. And I think another answer, too, would be an automatic rookie league. You want to jump, but you're going in the rookie league. Like, freshmen weren't eligible to play basketball in the as recently as the late 70s. So I think that's something to look at. Make a team, Garnett. The team of the guys that jump straight from high school to college, Garnett, Kobe, LeBron. Grab 5 guys that want to skip, say, okay, if you can play with those guys, you can play.
That's exactly.
And they're not going to be able to, because those are special guys.
Right.
Once in a lifetime guys.
Definitely. That's it for this week. Join us again next week for In the Cheap Seats.